The Imperial landing bay of Dravenmore Station reeked of burnt ozone and desperation. Ronan Hale wiped his grease-stained hands on his coveralls, squinting at the massive obsidian-scaled warship that had just crashed through the atmospheric shield. Sparks showered from its hull like dying stars. "Get back, human." A draconian guard with emerald scales and golden eyes shoved him aside, nearly sending him sprawling into a coolant leak. "This is Imperial business." Ronan steadied himself against a support beam, watching as dozens of Dragonborn soldiers poured from the damaged vessel. Their scales shimmered in colors that shouldn't exist, deep purples that held galaxies, crimsons that burned like nebulas, silvers that reflected light from stars light years away. They moved with barely contained panic, so different from their usual prideful grace. The station's human workers had learned long ago to make themselves invisible when the Dragonborn aristocracy arrived. Humanity was barely a century into galactic society, still considered primitive by most species. Useful for manual labor and simple repairs, but little else. Through the crowd of panicking nobles, Ronan caught sight of what they were carrying, a stretcher bearing a figure whose scales had lost their luster, turned the color of ash and smoke. Lady Seraphis Dravara, even a lowly mechanic knew that name. The Dragon Empress of the Seventh Spiral, ruler of 42 systems, commander of fleets that could crack planets, and she was dying. "The poison has reached her core," someone wailed. "Where is the healer? Why isn't he here?" "He won't make it in time," another voice cracked with grief. The assassin's blade was cursed with void venom. Nothing can stop it. Ronan should have walked away, should have returned to his repair bay and pretended he'd seen nothing. That's what humans did, survived by staying out of matters that didn't concern them. But something pulled him forward. Maybe it was the memory of his sister, dead from a fever the colony couldn't cure. Maybe it was the way Lady Seraphis's hand hung limp from the stretcher, so similar to how his mother's had looked in her final moments. Or maybe it was something deeper, something that had always lived in his palms, a warmth he'd never understood, a tingling he'd learned to ignore. The crowd of Dragonborn had carried their empress into a sealed medical bay. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, Ronan could see them hovering helplessly as sophisticated alien medical equipment beeped and whirred around her failing body. Her scales were turning transparent, her breathing shallow. The door's security panel was fried from the crash. Ronan's fingers moved automatically, bypassing circuits, rerouting power. The hydraulics hissed and the door slid open. 20 pairs of reptilian eyes fixed on him with expressions ranging from shock to fury. "How dare a human?" began a towering Dragonborn in royal purple scales. "Please." The word came out steady despite Ronan's racing heart. "Let me try." "Try what?" The purple-scaled noble, presumably a prince, advanced on him, heat radiating from his scales. "You're a mechanic. A grease-stained ape who barely knows how to operate our technology. My mother is dying from a poison that has killed Dragonborn for 10,000 years, and you think—" "Lord Tyrath, wait." An elderly Dragonborn with silver-white scales held up a clawed hand. Her eyes, clouded with age, studied Ronan with unexpected intensity. "Let the human approach. Mother Vestra, have you lost your mind? I have lived 9 centuries, child. I have seen things you have not." The old dragon's voice carried an authority that made even the prince step back. "There are old stories of the touch healers who walked Terra before humanity reached the stars. Magic, they called it, though it was something else entirely." Ronan's hands trembled as he approached the Empress. Up close, Lady Seraphis was breathtaking even in death's grip. Her scales held depths of burgundy and gold, and her face, despite the elongated dragon features, held a regal beauty that transcended species. "I don't know if I can help," Ronan admitted, his voice barely a whisper. I've only felt this heat in my hands when I was around sick things. Plants would bloom. My dog lived 5 years longer than any vet expected, but I never understood it, never controlled it." "Then let instinct guide you," Mother Vestra said softly. Ronan placed his oil-stained, calloused hands on Lady Seraphis's chest, just above where her heart should be. The moment his skin made contact with her cooling scales, the world exploded into sensation. Heat flooded through his palms, not burning but vital, alive. It was like touching the core of a star, like holding lightning and stardust. The warmth rushed up his arms, through his shoulders, down his spine. Every nerve in his body sang a frequency he'd never heard before. The medical equipment began shrieking. Alarms wailed, but beneath his hands something miraculous was happening. Color bloomed across Lady Seraphis's scales like spring returning to a winter world. The ashen gray receded, replaced by deep burgundy that gleamed like wine held up to sunlight. Gold traced along her features in patterns that seemed to move and breathe. The transparency vanished, solidity returning to her form. The Empress's eyes snapped open. Brilliant amber shot through with flecks of molten gold. She gasped, her back arching, and for a terrifying moment Ronan thought he'd made things worse. Then she was sitting up, one clawed hand wrapping around his wrist with surprising gentleness. "What?" Lady Seraphis's voice was like music played on instruments humans hadn't invented yet. "What are you?" Behind them, the assembled Dragonborn stood frozen in collective shock. Prince Tyrath's mouth hung open, showing rows of crystalline teeth. Several nobles had actually dropped to their knees. I'm just a mechanic, Your Majesty," Ronan stammered, suddenly aware that an interstellar empress was still holding his wrist. "I fix ships. Well, I try to. Sometimes I make them worse, but usually—" "Mother Vestra," Lady Seraphis interrupted his rambling, her eyes never leaving Ronan's face. "Are the old stories true, then? Do touch healers still walk among humanity?" "So it would seem, Empress." The elderly dragon's voice held something like awe. "The gift we thought extinct, the power that predated even our first flight to the stars. Terra's children kept their secrets well." Lady Seraphis released Ronan's wrist and stood, moving with fluid grace that seemed impossible moments ago. She towered over him, easily 8 feet tall, her presence filling the room like gravity. "Ronan Hale," she said his name like a declaration. "You have saved the life of the Dragon Empress. By the ancient laws of my people, you have earned a boon that cannot be refused. Name your price, wealth, power, territory. Anything within my empire is yours." Ronan thought of his cramped quarters in the station's human section, of his sister's grave on a colony world he couldn't afford to visit. Of all the things he could ask for, He met those impossible amber eyes. "I just want to understand what this is, what I can do." For the first time in recorded history, a Dragon Empress smiled at a human, not with condescension or amusement, but with genuine respect. Then Ronan Hale, humble mechanic of Terra, Lady Seraphis extended one elegant clawed hand. "Let me teach you. For if you can heal a poison that has killed my kind for millennia, I wonder what other impossible things your touch might accomplish." As Ronan clasped her hand, he felt the warmth in his palm surge again, not to heal this time, but to connect. And he understood suddenly that his life as a simple mechanic was over. Humanity's place in the galaxy had just changed, all because one man had refused to walk away.